Hello, I'm Eric Miskell with EMS Now. Welcome to this edition of EMS Now Up Close. Today, I have the opportunity for the first time to interview Sam Mason. Sam is the business and operations lead in North America for Luminovo. We've interviewed Luminovo before, but Sam is the lead for the team that was established here, as he will tell us momentarily, in North America to kind of drive the business here. So Sam, thanks for taking time. Welcome. Look forward to this chat.
Thanks very much, Eric. Nice to be here.
Yeah. So I wanted to focus on Luminovo, kind of what you're doing, right? The growth in North America. You have a team. I know you also, the important piece, you've mentioned it in a previous conversation, that you established the Luminovo Inc., right? So it wasn't under the kind of, so it's really the US, and that has certain implications for your business here as well. So give an introduction to the team and tell us what's happening here.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess I'll start with what's happening in Europe and how it came into North America.
Yeah.
So we are the dominant player in the European market, and we have a deep stronghold there. We have relationships with major industry players in Europe. And so you're right, we've established the Inc. in North America to come to North America, and we're the new kids on the block, meet the industry players here, from people like yourself to ambassadors, EMS, OEM, PCB shops, and just make a big splash in North America.
Mhm.
And even though we're moving into North America, that doesn't mean that our product is at a final stage at all. I would say one of the biggest differentiators from us and other incumbents is our vision of what supply chain electronics for the electronic space looks like, and also our pace of development. So we're taking that strong European foothold and I guess proclivity for innovation and pace and bringing it into the North American market.
Okay, very good. And in addition to you, it's just not Sam Mason running around the United States. It's
Right.
you have two other gentlemen. Do you want to say anything about them?
Definitely. So Matt Rosenberg is on the East Coast. He's our sales lead for North America. And Jack Mason, he and I are actually brothers, and he's the technical account manager. So the three of us are a lean, mean team to spearhead the North American team, but we're hoping to grow quickly and and grow quite large. And as we touch down, our team total is around 70 people. So you can see we're a small portion, but we have a lot of momentum behind us. A very large engineering team and a very sort of, strong roots in Europe.
Yeah, good. So, you're entering what I consider a mature EMS market in North America, right? And many established competitors in your space, right? We've talked about that before. So, what's your mission? How do you see yourself differentiating within that?
I think we're already quite different in our product itself, but mostly our approach. The problem that EMS and OEMs face is the same across the industry, and the solution that we've provided is already unique. Um, but what I would say is we are very bullish on AI in the supply chain, in the supply chain for electronics. So we already have AI embedded into our system. Um, right now, what that looks like is it's interpreting data that is messy or otherwise hard to interpret and making sense of it so that by the time the user gets access to the data, it's in a format that makes a lot of sense. Um, but we have broad visions about how AI will look in the future. So the right now we're at a stage of interpreting bad data, a poorly designed customer BOM or a PDF offer that otherwise you'd have to manually type in. These sorts of data inputs, which are common, we're interpreting those and making sense of those. But the next visions are really to provide like a Chat-GPT style interface, which on the back end of that is your own inventory levels, your own part information, so that you can be having these large language model style, or sorry, yeah, these Chat-GPT style conversations with the information of your relevant, your stock and your inventory. So a good example that would be like if you're designing a bill of materials and you realize that there's some compliance issue with your part, rather than looking through the market or through this, you could just ask the AI, what's a suitable alternative, and it
Yeah.
looks through your inventory as well as the market and brings that information to light, a little more conversational. Um, yeah, and we have lots of ambitions for AI. That's just getting started. I'd love to. I can
Yeah.
embellish more if you'd like, but
Yeah, no, and let's dive into that a little more. I mean, the role that AI is playing in electronic supply chain. There's so many options out there, right? You go to, we saw each other at Apex, right? You go, every booth almost has AI somewhere
yeah.
in the promotional stuff. And for a lot of us, people who are non-experts about AI, right? It becomes a little overwhelming, I would imagine, right?
Mhm.
People are trying to catch up very quickly, but with this new world and this new tool. So kind of how can non-experts kind of select the best solution, right? It's a challenge I think that people struggle with.
Yeah, I think you're right that people tend to struggle with that. Our first adoption of AI is really just, like I said, is to simplify bad data. So it's actually very easy to use
Yeah.
because the experience is you import data that you don't think is going to work, and then it makes sense of it and gives you data, and it interprets it, and you have that validation process right after it, right after the AI has interpreted this data, you get to validate. And so I would say it's a very natural learning curve um, because you're not necessarily seeing it. You don't have to interact with that first portion. So yeah,
Mhm.
we have those four stages of AI. The first one is interpreting fuzzy data, let's say. The second
Yeah.
was that Chat-GPT-like workflow. The third, or yeah, Chat-GPT-like conversation with your informed by your parts. And that's again like just trying to summarize data so that you can make the right decision right away. The third one is establishing a workflow. So we can talk about this more as we talk about the product itself, but you know, where you can trigger some form of supply chain related workflow with a text prompt. Like, I want to start a negotiation for this quarter's procurement. That
Mhm.
type of prompt, or I'm looking for ways to reduce 3% on this particular spend. That
Mhm.
type of high level, the way humans think.
Yeah.
And then the final one would be how do you automate sort of more broadly the workflow so that you can communicate with people using artificial intelligence. So I hear what you're saying about it being an intimidating world of AI.
Mhm.
In my opinion, the responsibility of AI is to synthesize, or I say summarize data in a manner such that humans can focus on the most important topics without focusing on all of the other distractions.
Yeah. And that's a good way to put it. So in the four phases that you just laid out, where do you see Luminovo currently?
We're between one and two. So we
Okay.
already have the the
Mhm.
the data processing on the input side, and that's one of the things that I think one of our key differentiators when you're looking at a product to product comparison for us starts with the BOM import, right?
Mhm.
You'll have some solutions out there where you hear stories from our customers or prospects where they say, before I even use this other system, I have to pre-format this nasty Excel document. So
Yeah.
even our system takes away that pre-formatting, which is just frustrating and time consuming.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're between the first and the second stage. So upcoming, we have that chat GPT like interface, then agentic AI, and eventually overall AI communication with the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Before I get more into the thing, I do want to circle back. I forgot to ask early on. With the establishment of your team here and the Luminovo Inc., you also have the benefit of being able to support companies who need to have ITAR compliance, correct?
Yeah. So
So
that
that becomes
was
an important piece.
absolutely. ITAR is the primary reason that I was brought on as an employee. I was a contractor before, um, but the Luminovo Inc. We entered the North American market before thinking that we could service the industry that didn't require ITAR compliance, and then we
Mhm.
realized that even companies that didn't immediately want or didn't have an immediate need for ITAR compliance wish that they did, you know?
Mm,
So you're right. We have established this inks, and we're establishing a U.S. data center so that we can provide EMS and OEMs and all of our partners, PCB board shops, so that we can be the central hub of this supply chain platform, and it's all ITAR compliant.
okay,
That's
great.
the goal. Yeah.
Now, the other issue I want to get into, then let's get more into the service model, but is about how Luminovo helps manufacturers navigate this tariff environment that we're all going through. And you deal with it within the total cost of ownership, I believe, kind of approach to this. So kind of
Yeah.
speak to that and talk to what's included and how you do that, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have we have a module called total cost of ownership, which really is a set of calculations to try to estimate the final landed cost of a component at your facility. So if you look at, any of the major distributors, you'll see a unit price, and that sometimes tells the complete story, but often you're missing stuff. You could have a packaging related fee, you could have a digi reel, you could have a shipping cost, you could have a customs cost, you have a tariffs cost. So
Mhm.
the total cost of ownership is pretty much putting you back in the driver's seat as a quoting team for a EMS, or for the design or procurement team for an OEM, and allows you to accommodate, or let's say consider, all of those costs when you're making your quoting and procurement and design decisions.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that only on the component, but you're also doing does it also apply for an EMS that's doing a complete quote? Does it provide it within that context?
I guess the answer is yes. There's a couple tariffs we have to consider there. The first one would be the effect of import tariffs for components from, say if you're importing, for example, a component from China into the US.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, you would have to calculate an import tariff on that component.
Mm-hmm.
Another, there could be other categories of fees also in that component. But what you just described there sounds like you're saying, okay, if you were to ship a completed PCBA from your location in the US to a country where they have tariffs back on the US. So we actually have the total cost of ownership is only focusing on import tariffs to understand what's the cost of the part arriving at my door. And then we have a product costing module, which does labor calculation, effectively creating a digital twin of your factory so that you can easily calculate labor. And it also does markup, margin, and tariffs. So
Mm-hmm.
if you know that there's a tariff that your customer is going to see, you can add it into that product costing module. But we treat them as very separate entities.
Yeah. It's interesting as I hear you speak, excuse me, I draw a comparison. Everybody says with the tariffs now, the problem is it's so ever changing, right? It's so continual changing. So the complexity and the speed of that is a little off-putting. But then I think that's happening in components too, right? So the pricing of
Mhm.
you're dealing with that, you've already got a process in place, within the platform to kind of deal with that complexity and the speed, that it's really almost, I don't want to say natural, but it should be an easy adaptation of that towards the tariff side,
Yeah,
assuming the
absolutely.
data sources are there. So,
Yeah, so what we have right now is the ability for a user to define the tariff calculation. So you would have pretty much, we're pulling metadata out of the offers we receive for a given component, and then we'll say, okay, the country of origin is equal to China, and you could have a calculation that looks at that piece of metadata for that offer, and you would define, some percentage markup to put on it. But where we may be going, when I was talking about our vision and their pace, one thing that we were talking about just this last week is how could we incorporate all those, what do they call it? HTS codes, harmonized tariff schedule codes, and as well as country to country, we have reciprocal tariffs. Now we have the fentanyl tariffs. We have a complex dynamic ecosystem of tariffs. And So right now, what we have is the ability for a user to define a tariff once, and it has a sort of a global impact. Very easy to edit. But where we're hoping to go is even take that off the plate of the user and just read from the market what are the tariff schedules, what are the relationships between countries, to even just like you said, the goal is just further simplify volatility so that people
Hmm.
don't have to worry about volatility because it's being considered by the software.
Yeah. That's excellent. And that kind of leads me into the issue of the evolving service model there. So obviously Luminova is adapting to what the market needs here in the example of the tariffs. But I remember last year speaking to Sebastian, and he talked about how Luminovo may have started as one tool, became a suite, and now has really evolved into a platform, right?
Right.
And I think at that time you also kind of separated everything went to EMS or OEM, right? And you've
Yeah.
strategically placed it that way. And so speak to that and the impact that had on the business. And then also the follow-up on that is you're moving, as you indicated before, the PCB fabs, right?
Yeah.
And being able to do the pricing of that now as well. So,
Yeah, definitely. So I think when we separated our offering into EMS specific and OEM specific, it provided a little bit of clarity both internally for our own teams as well as externally. If people can see, okay, yeah, I'm an OEM and I don't know how this software fits my business process. Now that value proposition is a little more clear. So for the OEM side, we have two primary relevant modules. One is design for manufacturing,
mhm,
which effectively allows your design team to consider market prices in components in the design to achieve a lower price. And then the other one that we have is a strategic negotiations module. And that is really for
mhm,
OEMs or large contract manufacturers to run rounds of negotiations with manufacturers. And we see that is sort of well adopted with the big players that we have. So if you
mhm,
have, say, um, you know, certainly more than 10 million annual spend, but say you have 100 million annual spend and you're negotiating for parts from Texas Instruments, for example, we have an entire module designated to facilitate, to aggregate your demand over a course of a year or a course of for a customer or for a quarter,
mhm.
aggregate that demand, and then go to the supplier and help with the negotiation and do a comparison between how do my prices this year compared to prices last year, you know, just clean up that whole negotiations process. So that's on the OEM side. On the EMS side, we have a module called Configure Price Quote, which effectively is just you configure the product with your own APIs so that
Mhm.
you are getting your own contract pricing from the distributors, and then you are importing a BOM. You have this AI infused BOM importer to make sense of the information, and then you go through the design process where you're looking at compliance issues, reach, ROAS, life cycle issues, all of this stuff to help clarify the design. Once that's complete, you can go into material sourcing, labor estimation, markup and margin, and get the quote. The goal is to make that as smooth and a fast process as possible. And so we help companies bring that process from weeks or days down to hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Yeah, that's excellent. And the other piece though within that is I want to touch on that PCB pricing mod, right? That you could do the PCB pricing because within this it becomes important is going back to the ITAR issue, right?
Mhm.
Is having within North America and while you're here, you being able to leverage the board shops, the domestic board shops, albeit that they're dwindling in numbers, right? But there are still a good base, and so you need to engage and have those in the system as well.
Yeah, and thanks for bringing that up because that's a feature that people in North America are not used to, and it's a real eye opener. Is that when we're not just importing a BOM, we're also importing Gerber files, and so part of I keep bringing it back to AI. We interpret those Gerber files and we draw the various layers that we show you your stack up. We show a drill, your drill manager. We
Mhm.
pull the, the mechanical files. We pull all of, or miscellaneous files, we call them. We pull all of this out of zip files and interpret that. And then we do go to the market and get instant PCB pricing.
Wow.
So, and this is why I say this discussion and our sort of push to understand the North American market and meet the players is not just for EMS and OEMs. We want to talk with the board shops and provide what I think is the world's first ITAR compliant instant PCB quote. That would be really cool. Maybe that exists somewhere, but I haven't heard of it.
Yeah,
So
no, yeah, I haven't either. So
yeah. So yeah, that's certainly a feature that we provide that is an eye opener for a lot of people who aren't used to it. Is that instant PCB quoting? Of course, you have the option always through the tool to send manual quote requests,
yeah.
but the one that really has people open their eyes and wake up a little and go, oh, I can get an instant bare PCB price through this tool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that is awesome. And I'm just thinking about, kind of the big issue here being your evolving model. Since going back to what you were saying of the four phases, you're one going to two, it's safe to assume that there will be a continual evolution of the service model as this progresses through those other phases.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have a vast backlog of features coming, of grand ideas. As you can see by the AI, we are already a market leader in AI in electronics supply chain platforms, and we're on step one of four. So
Mm.
that's a good example, right? But you're right. I think our product already is quite different from what's available today. But the biggest differentiator in my mind is our vision and our pace. So yeah, there's more to come. We have a really strong engineering team they're really fast. People are also not used to the speed that we're coming to the market with.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. That's excellent. Well, for people who are watching and are listening to this and want to know, well, Sam seems to be talking about something interesting. How do I learn about more? What are some ways that people can learn more and maybe meet the team here in North America?
Well, I guess I'll start. If you'd like to meet us in person, we're going to be at PCB East on April 30th. So we're at booth 504. And I guess we're trying to meet a lot of people. So we're going to a lot of events this year. But if the next one is PCB East, April 30th. We also have a deeper dive into some of the subjects we talked about today, how tariffs impact the future of the EMS industry. That's a webinar that I'll be talking about on May 6th. So please, please go to our website and sign up for that. Also, we have another webinar, how AI agents will transform the US electronics industry, and that's on May 13th.
Okay.
So those are the upcoming three events. Also, we have webinars recorded on our website. We have customer success stories. I'd encourage people to go do their own research. We have a bunch of webinars to sort of you can get a feel for the type of product that we bring to the table and the type of people that we are. So
Okay,
yeah.
very good. And then people who want to connect with you directly, Sam, I always tell people to go to LinkedIn. You have a good presence there. Is that the best way, or is there a North America site where they can connect and reach out to the team here
Um,
on your general website?
Yeah, I think you can just book a demo through the website.
There it is.
And if you're in North America, it will route you to the appropriate sales rep. Could be
Okay.
me, could be my brother Jack, it could be Matt. Um, and I guess if you are coming to PCB East, you'll also have an opportunity to meet one of our founders, Timon, who will be there on April 30th.
Yeah, no. Uh, that's excellent. That's right, because you will not be there at PCBs this year. So,
That's right, yeah. I intend on going to PCB West, but PCB East this year I'm not going. Correct.
okay. Excellent, excellent. So I would encourage people, tune into the events that Sam just highlighted. We'll be running something posted on our upcoming events about the webinars that you just mentioned. I didn't have the exact date, so now that we have them, we can hopefully post those. So, Sam, before I let you go, is there anything that I didn't ask you about that you feel compelled to share here, so that I don't leave
Well,
you hanging?
yeah, I was talking with Mark, who I believe you met just before this, and he pointed out that this is sort of a beautiful round trip story where Siba and Timon grew up in Germany, and then they met in Stanford, where they studied AI, and then they brought that California style entrepreneurship back to Munich and established a dominant supply chain platform company, and now finally it's coming full circle, coming back to the US.
And back to US. And Timon spends quite a bit of time over here, I know, kind
Yeah,
of.
that's right. He loves it here.
Yeah. By the way, the best part of that story at Stanford that I always liked when I heard is that they didn't know each other before they
Yeah,
actually went to Stanford. So
yeah. I
two young
hear that.
guys
I
from the
think
same general area in Germany, right? So
yeah, exactly.
it's a great story. And that's a good way to put it, right? Coming full circle and coming back at home. So
Yeah,
that's excellent. Sam, thanks for your time. This has been excellent. Hopefully we get more updates in the future. And I'm going to see if I can sign into your webinar there and hear you pontificate on tariffs here next month. So
fantastic. Thanks very much, Eric. Appreciate it.
appreciate you. Thank you, sir.